dramatic and dangerous escalation of the conflict in Ukraine. Kiev says its forces have destroyed part of a Russian armoured convoy that crossed into its territory overnight. Russia, though, has denied any military incursion, accusing Ukraine of trying to sabotage a delivery of aid. Britain has summoned the Russian envoy in London to clarify, as David Cameron said he was gravely concerned, urging both sides to reach a peaceful resolution. Our international editor, Lindsey Hilsum, now reports.
Russian armoured vehicles at the border into Ukraine. They seem to have stopped at the customs point. One convoy reportedly crossed overnight and a much larger one today. It's the first overt Russian incursion after months of arming pro-Russian separatists. But the Kremlin is still denying that its forces have gone over the border. In Kiev, the Ukrainian president was visiting soldiers who'd been captured and then released by the separatists. In a phone call with the British Prime Minister, he claimed that Ukrainian artillery had destroyed much of the Russian armour. His defence spokesman said they'd allowed the column in before attacking, but there's no independent confirmation.
I have to reassure you, this column was followed. It was always under the surveillance of our reconnaissance forces. Appropriate actions were undertaken, and a part of it no longer exists.
Journalists saw the Russian military convoy driving past aid trucks parked inside Russia. It headed down the road, reportedly crossing the Ukrainian border at Izvorinye, east of Luhansk and Donetsk, where fighting between Russian-backed rebels and Ukrainian forces has intensified. The Foreign Office summoned the Russian ambassador, while the Foreign Secretary attended an EU meeting in Brussels.
I'm very alarmed by reports that Russian military vehicles may have crossed the border this morning. Of course, the humanitarian convoy itself is a separate issue, but if there are any Russian military personnel or vehicles in eastern Ukraine, they need to be withdrawn immediately, or the consequences could be very serious. Thank you.
For several days now, Russia has been trumpeting the progress of a 280-vehicle convoy carrying aid from Moscow, supposedly for civilians in eastern Ukraine. It's bringing much-needed food and other supplies. But the trucks are military green, covered in white tarpaulins. Some are almost empty. And the self-proclaimed volunteers are all young men of military age in identical khaki shorts. At least one was sporting a military tattoo, and they appear to have top cover. The Ukrainian government says the Russian aid won't be allowed to cross the border unless it's inspected and distributed by the Red Cross. President Putin was meeting his Finnish counterpart today, talking about trade and sanctions. Russian and Ukrainian officials also met today, and further talks are scheduled for Sunday, a chance to pull back from the brink. In Donetsk, families shelter underground as the Ukrainian military shell the city, trying to drive out the remaining separatists. The people need aid. More than anything, they need a let-up in the fighting. But today's events suggest that this conflict has entered a new phase fraught with danger.